A pharaoh's divine power could not protect him from a scandal whispered through time. The story of Pharaoh Akhenaten and his alleged forbidden love for his own sister is one of history's most tantalizing mysteries, pieced together from fragmented artifacts and debated inscriptions. By the end of this journey, you will understand the real evidence behind the legend and why it forces us to question everything we think we know about ancient Egypt's most revolutionary family. Was their intimate bond a sacred tradition or a dangerous secret? What did the pharaoh's enemies try to erase from history when his reign collapsed? History is not just about facts we can prove, but about the haunting gaps where our deepest curiosities lie. What is it about a forbidden love story that echoes so powerfully, even after 3,000 years? To understand the gravity of these whispers, we must first step into the world that created them. This was the 18th dynasty of Egypt, a golden age of empire and power, but it was a pharaoh named Akhenaten who shattered its ancient traditions. He did something no ruler before him had dared. He abandoned the vast pantheon of Egyptian gods, the deities of sun and river and afterlife that had defined his civilization for 1,000 years, and declared there was only one true god worthy of worship, the Aten, the radiant disk of the sun. This was not just a theological shift, it was an earthquake. To cement his revolution, he turned his back on the old capital of Thebes, with its powerful priests who opposed him, and built an entirely new sacred city from scratch in the desert, a place called Amarna. Imagine the sheer will required to move the entire apparatus of a kingdom, to force a culture to look toward a single light in the sky. In this isolated, sun-baked city of radical ideas, the normal rules seem to dissolve. Here, the key players of our mystery come into focus. At the center is Akhenaten himself, often depicted with an elongated face and a strangely feminine body in the art of the time, a figure of intense and unsettling devotion. By his side was his great royal wife, the legendary Nefertiti, her famous bust a testament to breathtaking beauty and formidable power, a full partner in his rule and his new religion. But the shadows of Amarna hold another figure, one far more elusive. Historical records and broken inscriptions point to another important wife, a woman whose name appears and then is deliberately scratched away from monuments. Scholars often identify her as Kiya, or suggest she may have been one of Akhenaten's own sisters, given the title of secondary wife. This was not, in the context of their world, a shocking scandal. For Egyptian pharaohs, marriage within the family was a political and divine tool. The pharaoh was a god on earth, and his bloodline was considered sacred, a pure essence that could not be diluted by mixing with mortal stock. A sister wife was not a lover in the modern sense. She was a living seal on the dynasty's divine right to rule. Yet Amarna's art tells a story that feels different, more human than cold political doctrine. The artistic style of this period, what we call the Amarna style, broke every convention. Gone were the stiff, formal poses of gods and kings. Instead, artists carved intimate scenes of the royal family that have no parallel in Egyptian history. We see Akhenaten and Nefertiti playing with their daughters, holding them, kissing them, bathed in the rays of the Aten. The scenes are bursting with naturalism and affection. It is in this context of unprecedented intimacy, this new language of family love broadcast from the palace walls, that the old practice of royal incest takes on a different color. If the pharaoh is shown capable of such tender, personal love for his wife and children, what was the nature of his bond with a sister who was also a wife? The art of Amarna does not show us a forbidden love, but it creates the perfect, emotionally charged stage for that theory to live. It shows us a family that dared to appear human, and in doing so, opened a door for mysteries to walk through 3,000 years later. The stone walls of Amarna are where the whispers become carved in relief, a gallery of silent testimony. To find evidence of a sister wife, we must look closely at the art and inscriptions left behind, a puzzle where half the pieces are missing or deliberately defaced. One of the most compelling artifacts is the so-called Berlin stele. It shows Akhenaten seated with a royal woman, and they are bathed in the rays of the Aten. The inscriptions here are crucial. The woman is given titles that translate to phrases like the king's bodily sister, his beloved. This is the kind of language that ignites the debate. Does it refer to Nefertiti, suggesting she was a relative after all, or does it point to another, more shadowy figure? That shadowy figure is often named as Kiya. In several tomb scenes and on broken statues, we find references to a highly favored wife named Kiya, a woman who held significant status before seemingly vanishing from the records. Some inscriptions associated with her were later recarved to replace her name with that of Akhenaten's daughters. This erasure is a historical red flag. Who was she and why was she removed? A few scholars point to rare titles that could be interpreted as king's daughter, leading to the theory that Kiya might have been a daughter of the previous pharaoh, Amenhotep III, and thus possibly Akhenaten's sister. But the evidence is frustratingly thin, a ghost in the hieroglyphs. Then the plot thickens further with the arrival of a mysterious co-regent named Smenkhkare. Toward the end of Akhenaten's reign, another ruler appears alongside him, sharing the throne. The identity of Smenkhkare is one of Egyptology's great riddles. Some argue it was Nefertiti herself, ruling under a new name after Akhenaten's death. Others propose it was a younger brother of Akhenaten. And yes, a more speculative theory suggests Smenkhkare could have been a sister, perhaps the very sister wife elevated to unprecedented power. A single exquisite gold leaf portrait found in a royal tomb shows a figure named Smenkhkare with a royal wife named Nefertiti, who was one of Akhenaten's own daughters. The family tree becomes a tangled web of relationships that defy modern understanding. This is the core of the mystery. The Amarna period ended abruptly. After Akhenaten's death, his city was abandoned and his memory condemned. Statues were toppled, inscriptions were chiseled away, and his name was omitted from official king lists. This systematic damnation means our records are fragments. A phrase like king's sister who became the king's wife might refer to a standard practice, or it might be a clue to a profound personal story. The gaps in the record are not empty spaces, they are rooms where our curiosity lives, furnished by the few artifacts that survived the purge. We are left with beautiful, intimate art that shows a revolutionary family, and a handful of damaged inscriptions that refuse to tell their whole story. The silence itself becomes a kind of evidence, inviting us to wonder what was so important that it had to be erased. Yet for all the whispers of scandal, a closer look reveals a very different story, one written not in secret passions but in political stone. The idea of a forbidden love hinges on a modern reading of ancient evidence, and many historians argue we are projecting our own sensibilities onto a world that operated by entirely different rules. First, we must confront the most uncomfortable truth for the romantic narrative. Sibling marriage was not forbidden in the pharaonic court, it was standard procedure. For generations, pharaohs married sisters or half-sisters to keep the royal bloodline pure and consolidate power. To an 18th dynasty Egyptian, a king marrying a sister would not have been a shocking secret. It would have been a predictable, even dull, political move. The real scandal was Akhenaten's religion, not his potential marriage practices. So where is the concrete proof for a specific, named sister wife in Akhenaten's inner circle? The answer is, it is frustratingly absent. The inscriptions that use terms like king's sister are ambiguous at best. In Egyptian royal language, sister was often an honorific title, a term of endearment and status used for a queen, regardless of her actual blood relation to the king. Calling Nefertiti his beloved sister in art could simply be flowery court language, a symbolic nod to her role as his divine counterpart, not a birth certificate. This reframes the entire Amarna art gallery. Those stunningly intimate family scenes of Akhenaten kissing his daughters or embracing Nefertiti under the sun's rays were likely never meant to be private snapshots. They were brilliant propaganda. Akhenaten was selling a revolutionary idea, a single god, the Aten, as a loving father to the world. What better way to illustrate this divine, nurturing love than to show the royal family, the gods on earth, embodying that perfect harmony themselves? The tenderness was a theological billboard depicting the Aten's blessings upon the state. It was about ideology, not romance. This view finds its strongest champion in Nefertiti herself. The evidence for her being a non-relative, a powerful partner from outside the immediate family, is substantial. Her titles never clearly mark her as a king's daughter. Instead, she is depicted with unprecedented authority, shown smiting enemies in the style of a pharaoh, ruling as an equal. Elevating a brilliant outsider like Nefertiti made perfect political sense for a revolutionary king. It created a new power base loyal only to him and his god, breaking the influence of the old Theban priestly families who might have backed a traditional sister consort. If a biological sister wife existed, perhaps as a secondary wife named Kiya, her role may have been quietly ceremonial, a nod to tradition, while the real power and partnership resided with Nefertiti. In the end, the most compelling argument against the forbidden love story is its silence. If it were true, it would not have been a secret needing concealment. It would have been a public fact, celebrated in art and text like all other royal marriages. The fact that we have to dig so deep, argue over damaged pronouns and ambiguous titles, suggests we might be chasing a ghost that the ancients never would have recognized. The true mystery of Amarna then shifts from a hidden romance to a very public revolution, and the formidable woman who helped lead it. Perhaps the story's true power lies not in what happened, but in what we need to believe happened. Our modern obsession with the pharaoh and his possible sister wife speaks volumes about us and how we connect to a past that feels impossibly distant. We have transformed these historical figures who saw themselves as living gods into characters from a grand drama we can understand, a story of forbidden love, radical belief, and tragic downfall. This narrative fits a template we know well from countless novels and films, where the personal and the political collide in the most intimate way. It is far more compelling to imagine Akhenaten driven by a passionate, secret bond than by dry theological calculations alone. His revolutionary sun worship becomes the backdrop for a romance that defied convention, and his city's eerie abandonment feels like the perfect, melancholy setting for a love that could not survive. This instinct to humanize is powerful. We look at the stiff statues and formal portraits of ancient rulers and see only cold power, but give a pharaoh a secret heart, a vulnerability, a love that must be hidden, and suddenly he steps down from his pedestal. He becomes someone we can empathize with, his 3,000-year-old struggles mirroring our own themes of desire versus duty, individuality versus tradition. This is where fiction eagerly fills history's gaps. Popular novels and sensational documentaries have often taken the ambiguous title of King's Sister and woven entire epic romances around it, presenting the theory not as a scholarly debate but as a revealed truth. They amplify the intimacy of the Amarna art, framing those family scenes as snapshots of a unique and personal affection, while downplaying the well-established political norms of sibling marriage. The messy, complex reality of dynastic strategy is smoothed into a cleaner, more emotionally satisfying arc of rebellion and tragedy. In doing so, these retellings perform a kind of alchemy. They turn the historical Akhenaten, a ruthless religious revolutionary who likely displaced thousands and bankrupted his kingdom for his vision, into a romantic hero. His failure is softened, made poignant by the suggestion that he lost not just a throne but a great love. This is the ultimate case study in how we interpret the past. We are not neutral archaeologists dusting off facts. We are storytellers by nature, and we approach the silent evidence with our own values, our own fantasies, and our own cultural scripts already in hand. The empty spaces in the Amarna record become a screen onto which we project our deepest fascinations with power, secrecy, and the human heart. The mystery endures because it asks a question more profound than whether a particular marriage occurred. It asks why we are so determined to find the answer and what we reveal about ourselves in the search. The journey through Amarna's broken statues and enigmatic carvings leads us to a crossroads. We have the art that screams intimacy, the inscriptions that whisper of a sister, and the historical context that makes such a bond a royal duty, not a scandal. Yet after sifting through all the evidence, the truth remains just out of reach, a shape glimpsed through frosted glass. The forbidden love of Akhenaten and a sister is not a fact etched in stone, but a haunting possibility that lives in the gaps of our knowledge. This is perhaps the most valuable lesson history offers us. Our understanding of the past is not a completed puzzle, but a mosaic where some pieces are forever lost. The stories that endure, that capture our imagination for millennia, are often those built precisely in those empty spaces where discovery meets our human need for narrative. We are left with a profound and provocative question. In cases like this, is the mystery itself more compelling than the truth would ever be? A proven record of a standard political marriage might close the book, but it would also silence the questions that make Akhenaten's world feel strangely alive and relatable to us today. The silence of the ruins invites us to listen, to wonder, and to debate. What do you think lies at the heart of the Amarna mystery? Do you believe the evidence points to a profound personal story, or is it all a modern projection onto ancient politics? Share your theories in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into history's shadows, subscribe for more journeys where we explore the delicate line between what was and what might have been. Our conversation with the past is never truly over. It is a continuous dialogue fueled equally by the artifacts we find and the imagination they ignite.